Welcome to Pocono as we get ready for Sprint Cup Series qualifying from Long Pond, Pennsylvania. A little bit overcast day today as the cars going through inspection still. One of those, the 88s, in inspection. Earnhardt Jr. still on the windshield, but it's going to be Jeff Gordon who will be driving once again this weekend for the concussion-like symptoms that Dale Earnhardt Jr. was feeling a couple weeks back. Not able to run the last two races. And so Jeff Gordon once again behind the wheel for the ailing Dale Earnhardt Jr. And again, inspection is taking a little bit longer than what I'm sure NASCAR and any of the teams were expecting. And so it's going to be a little bit longer that they will be going through inspection. So we'll be able to talk about a few more things that are taking place here at the racetrack. Rick Allen alongside Jeff Burton, Steve Letarte. Starting up front, always critical, especially when you come to Pocono. Why?
Well, no question. We saw it last week in Indianapolis. We saw it the week before at New Hampshire. Track position matters. If you don't have to push as hard on restarts, that makes life easier. It helps you with your strategy. There's a lot of things that track position kind of eases things up on. You know, imagine if you restart this race and you start the race in 20th. The sense of urgency, the things you got to make happen to get toward the front is way different than if you start 6th. So in my opinion, on this racetrack, qualifying without a doubt matters.
Yeah, even though it's a 400-mile race, and that's a long race for sure, think of it like a chess game. And if it was a chess game, if you start inside the top 10, you almost start 2 moves ahead of your competition. You don't have to have that first courageous pit strategy move to get track position because you're starting with it. So the whole idea of these guys here for qualifying is to qualify well, qualify in the top 10. You don't have to sit on the pole. Top 10, top 12, kind of separate yourself from the pack. That will allow your crew chief, your team, everyone to start a little more relaxed and be less aggressive.
And you don't have to sit on the pole, but you sure want to sit on the pole. You know, everything's a race, and you want bragging rights. You want to be the pole sitter of this race. I mean, that's what today is all about, is winning that race for the pole. So, you know, it's not a necessity to win this race, but it's a necessity for your pride and for moving forward as a team.
And you mentioned bragging rights. I'm guessing the bragging rights went to Paul Menard for the first practice session. Has Danny Stockman now as far as his crew chief from here on out. And Danny Stockman, they focused on qualifying, and they went out there and proved that they can find speed.
They did, and that I think will help the driver's confidence. We heard about that in practice. Marty Snyder was saying that was Danny Stockman's plan, to build some confidence with his driver. But the only issue now is backing up that great practice run. While they did it in practice, and it was impressive, and it was run after run, it wasn't just one good lap. Now they have to go out here in group qualifying, remember, put up a good run, top 24 run, but then that second round, that's when the pressure mounts for this 2017. Can they transfer to the final round in the top 12?
And two guys that struggled a little bit, which was surprising because they're the two guys who have won the last 2 races here, Kurt Busch and Matt Kenseth. They couldn't find speed in that first practice.
Yeah, it really surprised me. You know, Kurt Busch did win this race in the spring, and I really thought coming here that he was going to be a favorite to win the race, and he may still be. It may just be they don't have speed in qualifying, but I really expected that team in particular to come here with speed. And then Matt Kenseth, we saw this same thing last week at Indy. They did not qualify well at Indy. They were the slowest car of the Joe Gibbs cars. They did not qualify well, but they ran their way to the front. So at a place where everybody was having trouble passing, we saw the 20 and Matt Kenseth. They were able to pass and get themselves up toward the front.
So those two drivers with Kurt Busch and Matt Kenseth, they're fine in the chase standings, but because they've got wins. But there are guys that we really need to focus on here that are close to that cut line, especially Kyle Larson, Casey Kane, Dale Earnhardt Jr., who's not here. A big topic.
Yeah, well, let's take Kyle Larson, for example. Last week at Indianapolis, they didn't do anything spectacular, but they didn't do everything poor. They qualified well. They ran an efficient race. They ran up front, and they gained points. Now 10 points above the cut line. So look just below the cut line in Casey Kane. This is the type of track we've seen him win on in the past. If they could have a good qualifying run, maybe build a little momentum, or just take some pressure off, keep that track position all day, they could maybe find those 10 points they need to get above the cut line.
And I mentioned earlier that inspection was going a little bit longer than what was expected. Let's hear from Scott Miller of NASCAR. He's with Mike Massaro.
And Rick, the good news is all these cars have gotten through inspection at least once. The bad news is many of them failed in that first go-through inspection. Scott Miller with us right now. Give me your assessment of what's going on.
We're going to extend the start time for qualifying by about 20 minutes or so. We had a little bit of a glitch this morning at the opening of inspection with our laser platform. We got it rectified quickly. Thought we'd be able to make up the time, but teams are struggling through templates as well. So because we had a little ownership in the LIS getting started late, we're gonna delay the start of qualifying.
It seems like there's a variety of issues that teams are failing with today. Why do you think that is?
They're seeing how much they can get away with. It's the same as this has been for a long time.
And with that, things are being teched extremely tight right now, Rick. As Scott said, we're going to start a little bit late, but we will get underway with the full field of cars.
Trying to get away with stuff. Well, there's always a gray area, and a crew chief and a team always wants to find that edge.
Yeah, let's start with what Scott had to say. The LIS, the laser inspection platform, basically measures the toe, the camber, a bunch of chassis settings. It measures a lot of different parameters within the race car. So you heard that they had an issue with it this morning, and they felt like they lost some time. That's really why NASCAR is giving the time back, because if all these teams had the ample amount of time this morning and continue to have trouble, they wouldn't extend it. But it sounds to me that NASCAR felt they had a little issue. But there's no surprise, Rick and Jeff, that they're having issues everywhere else. It's a big 2.5-mile speedway. Every advantage counts.
Yeah, and aerodynamics make a huge difference. So, you know, in regard to templates and those kind of things, the teams are going to constantly be pushing NASCAR to find out what the limit is. And if you honestly, if you don't push, you're not doing your job. If you go through tech every week and not have some sort of pre-qualifying, pre-practice, pre-race tech issue, nothing major, but something small, you're probably not pushing as hard as you need to, because, you know, it's like when you're a kid. If you don't push the limit a little bit, your parents don't tell you you're doing something wrong, you don't really know it. So these guys, and also remember, they're prepping for the chase. So you're going to push a little bit harder to find out what you think NASCAR is going to let you do. And you know, these things you can't write a rule for everything, right? I mean, you can't just write a rule that says this for about every. There's so many components, so many pieces. So these teams constantly, this year, last year, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, we're pushing the rules, and it'll be happening 20 years from now.
Absolutely. I like that you looked at me when you said, as kids, you try to push the edge.
Well, Steve was so well behaved.
Of course he was.
No, he didn't.
One driver who definitely will be a threat for the pole is Joey Logano. He's with Parker Kligerman.
Joey, you were 7th in first practice. Do you have the speed to back that up in qualifying?
I think we do, actually. I think we're better than what we were in practice, which is good. And usually qualifying, you always find a little bit more, whether it's in the car or in yourself. You usually can add up a little bit more. So I'm happy with the speed in the Shell Penzo Ford. It unloaded pretty quick, and then we went to qualifying, trimmed the speed, transferred over. So I'm excited for see what we got here in a few minutes.
And actually, qualifying has obviously been pushed back. Does that upset you in any way or move some of your strategy here, knowing it's been pushed back, that some cars that didn't get through tech are kind of holding you guys up?
It doesn't really change much for us. We're just going to go out there and hammer down either way. So, you know, we'll get out there and get a clean hole when we can. You know, obviously there's some clouds coming over and stuff like that. So that game may be played a little bit by everybody. But for the most part, it's going to be get out there, get through the rounds, and hopefully beat in the third one and go for the pole.
Sounds good. Joey Logano making a run at the pole.
Thank you, Parker. And we will hear from more of the drivers before they climb into their cars for the first round of qualifying from Pocono when we return. Watch every Sprint Cup Series race with the NBC Sports app. Get closer with additional camera angles, driver stats, and track information. It's available on mobile, tablet, and connected TVs. You can download the app and find out more at NBCSports.com/live. Again, a little bit of a delay here before qualifying gets underway from Pocono. And Paul Menard was fast in the first practice, and a lot of people are pointing to Danny Stockman as the reason for the turnaround and the speed that Paul Menard found. This is what Danny Stockman had to say in the media room after that first practice.
RCR as a whole, we don't like to suck, and we have been extremely what's the word? We have been really, really digging hard as a company to not suck. I mean, it's not fun. Your people get beat down, and I feel like right now, like I said, I'm new and I'm scanning through the pictures after practice and walking through the garage here, eyeballs wide open, looking at everybody's equipment, and we have all the stuff. Our stuff is there. It's competitive. We got to stay in front of the curve for the next change.
I love it.
That's candid.
Well,
right there.
yeah. What I love about it is it wasn't rehearsed. It didn't sound like I was speaking to the PR director at RCR. It sounded like I was talking to the new crew chief of Paul Menard's car there, Danny Stockman, and that is a man who's grown up in that organization, has raced, has found success, and you could see he tried to get it as polite as possible, but he wanted to be clear where he felt the company was at, where they all felt they were at, and how much better they wanted to be, and I thought it came through perfectly.
Yeah, and part of this change obviously is about improving performance, but you know, Danny Stockton doesn't have in his pocket 2 or 3 tenths. Right. He has to use the tools around him, but the attitude, the hey, look, I'm the new guy, and you can see he has an attitude, he has a swagger, he has confidence about him, and sometimes, you know, just that change of attitude, a new way of looking at things, you know, that can be infectious, and when you haven't been running well, it drags your team down. He said it drags the company down. People don't have enthusiasm. We're working this hard, this many hours, and we still aren't good enough, and that drags you down. So a guy like him comes in enthusiastic, hey, you know, this is a new start. In many ways and many times, that moves you forward.
Danny Stockman has won a championship in the Camping World Truck Series. He's won a championship in the Xfinity Series, and now making his debut in the Cup Series as the crew chief for Paul Menard. Parker.
Paul, your new crew chief, Danny Stockman, recently today said he's trying not to suck. But you guys were first in practice, so that's obviously not sucking. Can you take that into qualifying, that speed?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't changed a whole lot. We went back on just a couple little changes that we did from when we ran our best lap to the last run. But I feel really good about it. The car is pretty easy to drive, has good speed in it. It's got to go out and hit all my marks.
And talk about hitting your marks. One of the places a lot of drivers focus on, I know myself, is turn 2. You sometimes, especially in qualifying, you got to rise to the grip level and get everything you can out of it in turn 2 to have a fast lap here. How's this 27 Chevy getting through turn 2?
And I felt like my strength was off turn 1. I could get to the gas early and hard and carry momentum off 1. Turn 2 is always tough. I mean, you have to be so precise through there every lap. The good thing is you don't lose a whole lot of time if you do miss it in turn 2 compared to 1 or 3, but you still have to get through there just solidly. Like I said, I felt really good off of 1 and off of 3 to carry that momentum down the front stretch.
That's Paul Menard trying to put the whole lap together to go for the pole. Mike?
Hey, Parker, the guy that was behind Paul Menard in that first practice, that was Kyle Busch. Had a very fast race car again. What do you think of your chances of capturing the pole this afternoon?
I think they're okay. You know, we certainly have a really good car. It's definitely, it just feels different than when we were here the last time. And I'm not sure if that's just me and my sensories of being at Indy and how smooth Indy was last week and how kind of rough and bumpy this place has gotten over just the last couple of years since the repave. But overall, you know, we've had really fast M&M's Camrys this year, and we've qualified up front a bunch. So hopefully we can make it to the final round, and we'll see what our adjustments look like through those rounds in order to make sure that we've got a car capable of trying to get the pole.
When you say it feels different than the last time you were here, what exactly do you mean?
Well, last time we were here, I don't even remember what the race was before it that we came here from. But coming from Indy, for as smooth as that place was, it's just that's the last thing on my mind and what I remember and what I felt last week. So getting in the car here and going after it this morning for first practice, it was like, whoa, wait a second, this is different than last week. I don't remember that. So, you know, maybe it had something to do with going road course testing this week as well, too, at Watkins Glen. That place is really smooth also now. So I just had to change my sensories a little bit and kind of get used to running some laps around here at Pocono.
Thanks for your time.
You got it.
Kyle Busch looking for another pole. Won the pole last week, looking for consecutive ones here today. Rick?
So here's a Sprint Cup champion talking about how you have to adjust going from one racetrack to the other. And it's not easy. Like you have an idea in your head what this is going to feel like, how this car is going to drive. And you just heard him say, I was at Watkins Glen and my sensories are different than you have to change every week. It's not easy. You don't just pull out of pit road, go to 4th gear and everything be perfect. You have to relearn these racetracks. I know that sounds crazy because he's been here so many times, but the cars drive different. Every racetrack's different. The bumps feel different at every racetrack. I mean, how many times have you gone to a real bumpy racetrack and the drivers say, oh, Atlanta, the drivers say, oh my God, it's never been this rough ever. Well, it's just like it was last year. It's just you've been on other racetracks. Right. And you have to readjust yourself to the racetrack that you're on.
I'm going to put up a very long list here. Actually, it's a short list because Kyle Busch has only not won at 2 racetracks that we run competitively now. That's Charlotte and Pocono. And surprising that he hasn't won at either one of those tracks yet. But he's got a lot of momentum coming into this one.
Hasn't won in the Cup Series. because he has dominated at Charlotte in the other series. He's won here in a Craftsman truck, so, or excuse me, a Camping World truck. So, you know, it's only really, I think, a matter of time before he wins in these 2 series. Showing my age, Rick.
It is only a matter of time, obviously, because of the successes that we've seen from Kyle Busch. Again, another track that he has not won at. We'll see if he can win the pole later this afternoon.
For over 60 years, STP has been developing products to help cars run at their peak performance. To get the inside track on NASCAR racing, go to NBCSports.com/Inside NASCAR.
Qualifying about to get underway from Pocono. And we heard just moments ago, series champion Kyle Busch talking about doing a little testing this last week at Watkins Glen, a new racing surface there. And Brad Keselowski was also a part of that testing. And Brad had a very difficult test session as far as getting into turn number 1. We ride along with him down the front straight, and he gets upwards of about 150 miles an hour and slows way down because the brakes aren't working, but he goes straight into the wall.
Yeah, big impact. This, you know, turn 1 at Watkins Glen, it is basically a 90-degree wall. You know, you're going down the straightaway, you're looking at the face of a wall, and we've seen a lot of big impacts. You see the steering wheel where he had his hands on the wheel trying to hold on, how much damage it did to the wheel, but fortunately he wasn't injured, and because that was a big impact.
And this was the response that Brad Keselowski had earlier today when he was talking to the media about that incident.
There's only so many of those hits you're going to take before someone gets killed. It's just the way it is. I know that. It's not something I'm comfortable with, but I think as a sport, there's, you know, a lot of different ways to look at it. At the end of the day, I'm still standing here. Odds are that if, you know, 100 people take that hit, 1 or 2 are not going to be standing here anymore. I think that's pretty safe to say. So since, you know, half a dozen have taken pretty similar hits in that same part of the racetrack, you know, I would say it begs to reason that maybe a change should be made in that area. But I can't say that I have the specific idea at this time, because more people are going to take that hit, and eventually one of us ain't going to come back. But, you know, that's something that the smart guys that work on that stuff are going to have to figure out sometime. We've signed up for a certain level of risk, and, you know, that's right on the edge of what's acceptable risk. I think every driver has their own line, and, you know, if you're looking at it from that perspective, I think every driver is saying that that's the acceptable risk they've signed up for, and it falls within those parameters.
And, you know, Rick, those are uncomfortable comments because no one wants to talk about safety in that manner, but I applaud Brad Keselowski. Sometimes it takes a veteran driver, and he was in the impact. He has every right to talk about that in whichever manner he feels is correct. He was the only one in that car. He knows what that crash was about. And those uncomfortable comments, whether it's rules or safety, seems to drive NASCAR in general. But he mentioned, you know, a half a dozen drivers or so wrecks in the past. Well, here's some of them. Jimmy Johnson, a major impact back in the Xfinity Series. You see the car skip right over the gravel. Very little speed was dissipated out of this car. You see right through the foam and into the Armco barrier. But we've seen this more than just this one time, and I think that's what Brad was talking about, Rick.
You see Denny Hamlin, the front tires locked up, but the brakes aren't working well enough, obviously. Another big impact, pretty much head on. And I think that's the biggest issue with the corner, is that this is a high-speed corner. Watch this car. He actually, the thing about this car is watch the tire barrier slow the car down before it gets to that barrier. So that's an example of something that the sport really needs to be looking at, is how do you dissipate the energy so that in that impact, you know, the impact happens over a longer period of time. That's what you're asking to do. If you can imagine, if you take your fist and you hit something really hard, you know, you hit it really hard and it stops as soon as it hits it. If you hit something soft, you hit it, but the force continues, and it makes that impact happen over a long period of time. So that's how injuries are minimized, is slowing down, lengthening the amount of time it takes for an impact to happen as the impact does happen. So this is a difficult situation because it is a pretty much head-on impact. But I like the fact that he was willing to get out there and say what he did, because it's so easy in this sport to look at those examples of wrecks as success, right? All those guys got out of the race car, and they should be looked at success, because without all the innovations that have happened, maybe somebody doesn't walk out of there. So it is a successful story, but you also have to look at it the other side. What can we do to make sure the success continues?
Right.
What change needs to happen so that it can continue? And that's what being proactive and not being, I'm using the word lazy. Nobody's been lazy. It's been a lot of work, a lot of effort put in, especially at Watkins Glen, Steve. Watkins Glen has spent a lot of time, energy, and money on trying to make that racetrack safe.
Well, I think that's important. So why? Why is this happening at Watkins Glen? Well, in an oval, the angle of the wall is pretty good normally to deflect the car. But this is Watkins Glen. This is the front stretch right here where those cars were traveling. This is down in turn 1 to head up towards the S's. So what happened to Denny Hamlin is he approached this part of the racetrack, his brakes failed, which sent him off, and you see the wall right here. That basically gives him a 90-degree impact into that wall. That's what we've seen multiple times. So we think there needs to be a fix. But the problem is there's only so much area right here to try to fix what he's trying to do. So I don't know what the situation is. You know, you're trying to get it where it's not a 90-degree impact. Versus Pocono, you see these tire tracks, they go up, they hit the wall, the car glances and goes in that direction. Well, that impact is still severe, and their speeds are high. It's the angle of impact. We're going to talk about this all the time at crashes, the angle in which the car hits the fence. Ovals, why they are very dangerous, I've always felt road courses are more dangerous, Jeff, because you just have change of direction, and the cars can go in any manner. But we've seen Watkins Glen make major improvements to safety in many areas of the racetrack. Now, apparently, they're going to have to look at turn 1. I'm sure Brad would give him his opinion, but like Brad said, I don't have a suggestion either. But they're very smart groups out there I'm sure NASCAR can lean on.
Jeff, with the repave at Watkins Glen, are we going to see higher speeds, even that they may get up on that front stretch and get into that turn 1 wall?
Well, we'll certainly see higher speeds. There's no question about that. I don't know that the higher speeds are the cause of this issue, though, because, you know, most of these issues that we've seen have been mechanical issues where the brakes failed or something happened at the wrong place, which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like, the brakes have failed there many times, and that's an oddity. But in racing, you have to assume that odd things are going to happen.
Like inspection taking a little bit longer than normal before guys get out on track. They'll be climbing into the cars in just a few moments, and we'll get underway. Closing in on qualifying for Pocono as the raceway awaiting the stars of the sport to climb into their cars. Let's go down to Mike.
Brad Keselowski ready to jump in his race car. We just talked about what happened in Watkins Glen a little bit. Give me a synopsis of what happened and how you were able to walk away unhurt from that. That was a brutal crash.
Yeah, it's a tough test. Testing at road courses, you know, you never know what you're going to get. But we had a great test going, and unfortunately broke a brake line, and the car kind of sped off into the runoff and hit the wall really hard. So feel lucky to be standing here in somewhat one piece, one condition, and hopefully we can move forward from it and come back to Watkins Glen in a few weeks and run really well. But today is all about Pocono and trying to set on the pole for the second straight time.
All about Pocono? Because I know you've got Iowa on the schedule as well. How are you able to manage all this today?
Well, today is about Pocono, so Iowa will be tomorrow. It's a lot to manage, but you know, I got some great people around me here with Team Penske that helped me get through all of it, and we'll be in good shape. We'll be ready to go tonight.
We'll let them get back in the race car here, Rick, as we get set to go qualifying.
They are strapping in and getting ready for round number 1 of qualifying from Pocono. We'll be right back. Moments away from cars making their way out onto the track. Some are still back in the garage. And that's Matt Kenseth already strapped in to his car as he will be coming out as we get ready for round number 1. Take a look at the rules. Group qualifying. Round 1 will be the fastest 24 will advance to round 2. That's a 20-minute round. Round number 2 is only 10 minutes long, and the fastest 12 will advance to the final round, or round 3, and that will set the top 12, including the pole winner. All of the speeds and times reset from round to round.
And Rick, what's very difficult is the size of this racetrack. You know, we saw a fast time in practice of 50.7 seconds. Well, it takes about another 55 seconds to take the green flag. So not only do you have to try to advance through the rounds, but if you do advance, or if you want to run a second time in a session, you have to work extremely hard to get the engine cool enough to run all that grill tape that you want to run.
Green flag is out for round number 1. Let me ask you both. We saw speed out of Paul Menard in practice. They were focused on qualifying trim. Where do you see Paul Menard kind of cycling out in this first round? Is he
Well, I
gonna
think
be
they
fastest?
advance. I think they certainly advance into the second round. I don't know where. And the main thing, really, if you're top 24, it doesn't matter where. I mean, I think they showed enough speed that maybe they try to save a little bit of tire, not push 100% if they feel like they're fast enough to do that. Remember, at this racetrack, there's a lot of difference between first and 20th. I mean, there's a solid 6-7 tenths of a second, so you maybe cannot push turn 3 quite as hard as you need to advance and then try to save a little bit of tire. So that's risky. That's risky, but if you're confident to do it, then you could do it.
I asked Tony Gibson, crew chief for Kurt Busch, between the practice and this qualifying, I said, I noticed in our first practice that guys would go out and maybe their second and third laps were even faster than their first. Are you going to see that in qualifying? He said, yes, absolutely. We think that our third run could be our fastest run.
And you see there's still some cars, you know, the 18 up on jack stands, the 78, they're loading their driver in. So Martin Truex has cleared inspection. He'll have to drive his car up on pit road, but the 18 hasn't cleared inspection. You see them underneath the car adjusting what looks to be perhaps maybe truck arm slugs or something under the car, basically to try to get the rear skew for the laser platform probably is the issue. So as the time ticks down, we're under 19 minutes. So, you know, they have to make a lap.
Right.
The only way you got to be in the top 24 to make a lap, and these are some major adjustments for the 18. They have to put the car back together, go through inspection. A lot still to be checked on this 18 car to get out and even complete a lap.
He's won the last 2 poles in the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series at Indianapolis. Actually made history by winning the pole and the races for both of those races in the same week, and no one had ever done it before. Now he's in jeopardy of not maybe getting out for even a run in the first round.
Yeah, and as I look at those adjustments right there, definitely something in the rear housing, Jeff. Either skew, but that would be more into the center of the car, or camber, the rear camber. You can adjust the rear camber on some of these cars, and perhaps that's what he was doing there.
Matt DiBenedetto was fastest until Danica Patrick went across the line, and now it's Chase Elliott that has moved up to the #1 spot.
Yeah, and I think the comment that you made, Rick, about being able to run faster on your second lap, that prohibits you from trying to save any tire. Because if you can run faster the second time out, you better get all you can the first time out, because if not, if you're down in 18th, 16th, 15th, you may have to go again. Well, now you have 2 heat cycles on your tires. So I think with that being said, I think you got to go and run as hard as you can this first session.
And I already see when I look from maybe Danica Patrick through Trevor Bayne, maybe Clint Boyer through Trevor Bayne, that is the group of cars, if you look at practice speeds, that were just outside looking in. They had to pick up speed, whether it was Matt DiBenedetto or Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Trevor Bayne, they needed speed. So instantly you see that they ran early, Jeff, and I think that is with the idea that they can cool that engine down and go out and run a second time if need be.
Yeah, Chase Elliott ran slower than what he ran in practice, so that indicates to me that we could indeed see speeds pick up as this practice goes on.
40 cars here for 40 spots, so no one will go home as we look at Paul Menard and showing speed once again.
Fastest in practice, Rick, and even if, you know, you don't have to be the fastest to be in the top 24, but you want to run, you want to back up that lap time, have your team feel good about what you did in practice. Earlier he ran a 50.72 right there, a 50.97, so 2.5 tenths slower. I'm confident. I'll go out on a limb and say that 51 flat gets him through to the second round, really without concern.
Mike.
And Rick, just a quick update on the 18 car. As we talked to Kyle Busch before qualifying began, you heard that he was a little bit confident that he could go out there and run for the pole, but the team's still working on the car. I spoke with the Vice President of Officiating and Technical Inspection. That would be Elton Sawyer. He told me the team is having problems with the camber of the right rear right now. They're working on that, trying to adjust it. Steve, as you know, that could be a bit of a timely situation where they've got a lot of work to do in order to get out there. Just 15 minutes remaining here in round 1.
Yeah, there's really 2 ways to adjust rear camera. As you see on your screen, Jeff Gordon in the green wasn't that great in qualifying practice. Looks like they've found some adjustments so far. But basically, Rick, you can either actually take a torch, as odd as it sounds, and heat up and bend the rear end housing itself, or some teams have some adjustable sleeves underneath the rear hub. All you really have to understand is both of those adjustments are timely. So we'll have to see if the 18 car can find, with only 15 minutes left, can find a way as we go on board with Jeff Gordon. He's busy in there, Jeff, downshifting.
Yeah, he is downshifted. Now he's coming to the start-finish line to get the checkered flag. He lost a little bit of speed in turn 3 and off the tunnel turn. So still not a bad lap, though. That puts him in 7th. I'd say that's safe. I think he can probably sit there. We'll see. He beat Danica Patrick by about a 10th. Casey Mears by about 3 tenths. So I think that's relatively safe.
I mean, basically, Rick, 24th in practice was a 51.60. We haven't seen a lot of cars pick up, so I imagine the bogey for the cut line is around a 51.50 or 51.60. So what that tells me is that maybe Danica Patrick, Eric Almirola on up, they may be okay. Mears on down. They're going to be close. We'll have to see how qualifying plays out.
And Harvick did pick up from what he ran in practice. He picked up about 1/10 of a second, and that's all just a little bit slower than the fastest time in practice. So the racetrack has it. But one thing notice, as you're looking at these race cars, look, what do we see? We see cloud cover. There's shaded racetrack. So quite possibly, just like Indianapolis, we could have a little bit quicker times now. We see the sun in turn 3. This racetrack is so big. Yeah. You can have shade in one part and sun in the other, but there is shade around the majority of this racetrack.
I've been at this racetrack where people have said it is pouring in turn number 2 and the sun was shining on the front stretch.
I won a race at this racetrack and it was pouring only in turn 2. Turn 2 was enough, and I was very thankful because of it. Matt Kenseth here, we talked about him at the top of the show, just didn't have the pace that we expected out of this 20 car. We've talked about the Joe Gibbs Toyotas, how successful they've been. 3 of them seem to be very fast. Matt Kenseth, though, has struggled really all day. And you see almost 0.5 of a second, although he's gaining a little bit of time back off turn 3. I think this lap time will be good enough, but not the speed we're normally seeing out of that. When you see right behind it, Martin Truex, almost maybe a little toe right there.
Is that a draft? Are we seeing Martin Truex Jr. get a little bit of an advantage because of a draft?
You wouldn't think you would want that, but it seemed to be okay for the 78.
Martin Truex Jr. is fastest now in this session. Once again, the cut line will be at 24. The top 24 will advance into round 2. Ryan Blaney goes to second fastest.
Casey Kane right here. We have some awesome cameras we're going to show you later in the weekend. We have his foot cam and show him shifting and how busy his feet are, and he jumps up to 9th quick right here as Jimmy Johnson, his teammate, goes to 4th quick.
231 car Ryan Newman, he showed speed in practice. He was 9th fastest. His teammate has one teammate, Dylan, in 8th. His other teammate, Menard, in 6th.
And again, this first round will be 20 minutes, just under 12.5 minutes left, and still the 18 of Kyle Busch trying to finish up work in inspection. You see him standing waiting until it gets through the laser inspection.
And that can be a stressful situation. As you see his teammate, the 19 of Carl Edwards, starting his lap right here. Kurt Busch surprisingly close again. We saw the 78. This is a huge racetrack. You would think you would want more clean air than that, Jeff. In the race, we see cars slow down 2 or 3/10 of a second when they get that close to a car. So I'm really surprised Kurt Busch decided to be that close to the 19 car.
Carl Edwards looking good as far as the pole, or at least in this round, looking the fastest.
Oh, he got through the tunnel turn really well. That feels good as a driver when you nail a tunnel turn. It just makes gripping, being the throttle, such a fun corner.
Big gains as he goes through turn 3. Carl Edwards comes out onto the front stretch, and he is in the green.
2/10 for the good right here. 2/10 for the pole.
And there's a bunch of cars out there right there as Edward goes to 1st, Kurt Busch to 12th. Joey Logano looks like he's going to be in the top 24 if he stays on the pace he is. We're going to start moving that cut line very quickly.
I said Gordon was probably pretty good when he ran that lap, but he's down to 20th. So I'm not so sure that is good. I don't know that he'll get bumped, but if cars can go faster the second time out, that moves Gordon to 21st. As Logano goes to 5th, then that'll force the 88 and Jeff Gordon, Danica Patrick, Matt Kenseth, Biffle. That'll force them to go again if indeed people can go faster the second time out.
Kyle Busch has yet to go. Jeb Burton, Brian Scott, Reed Sorensen. 4 cars that haven't been on the track yet, as we see the 18 clearing through inspection. Now they'll do the final things that they have to do prior to getting them out on track.
So to keep it simple, Rick, basically to go across that platform that measures your car, the laser platform, the teams have to put basically blocks in the suspension, holding the car up to the ride heights of 6 inches and 8 inches. Now they're allowed to remove those. This is all your work you're going to see done. The big concern right now is everybody take a deep breath. We have 10 minutes. Let's not leave something in that's not supposed to be. Leave something unhooked that we're supposed to hook up. Tire man, make sure we get the tire pressures correct, not transpose numbers. We know we have speed. We have confidence. If this 18 car, we heard Kyle Busch talk about it. Man, he has a lot of good feeling in his race car. Let's just get a good solid lap in and try to get in that top 24.
But remember, the last time this car was on the racetrack, it had the camber in it that you just had to take out. So the reason that the team shot a max camber out is because it makes the car drive better. So with the adjustment that had to be made, this car possibly is not going to be as good as it once was because they had to take the camber out, and that's not what you want to do. A lot of that goes back. We heard Scott Miller talk about the platform wasn't working before practice. So this car could have gone to submit and say, hey, are we okay? And it not being able to tell if they were okay. So they didn't know. You wouldn't go into practice knowing that you had something you couldn't qualify. You wouldn't do that. So this surprised them that the camber wasn't where it needed to be.
And Rick, the reason I said what I did about cars out here, you know, relatively close to one another is because downforce and side force and aerodynamics at this big racetrack are so important that I would expect qualifying these cars would try to run by themselves.
You mentioned side force. Let's look at the NASCAR Heat Evolution animation and show you a little more detail about side force.
So yeah, as we put our car in the wind tunnel, you see right here the air going over the front of the car. Well, when the car is coming straight at you, you see how the air trails efficiently down the side of the car. Pretty smooth, comes off the right front fender, down the side. There's not a whole lot to it. But then what we'll do is we'll turn the car, Jeff, put some angle in the car, some skew.
Yeah, this is when the car starts to drive good because now that air is being forced onto the back of the car. So on the back of the quarter panel, but also onto the spoiler. So when we see these cars go down the straightaway, it looks like they're going crooked. This is why. It's by design. Side force in many ways makes the car drive better, and it's more important than downforce. You want both. You want to maximize that side force and downforce. But if you don't have the side force right, the car is very insecure. It's hard to get it in the corner the way you want. It is security. That's what side force provides you, grip and security, and that equals speed.
And a reminder, NASCAR Heat Evolution is released on September 13th. Pre-orders are available online now at NASCARHeat.com. You're leaning on that side force.
Think of it like a crutch, Rick. That's really the best way to think about it. You know, your downforce is kind of the weight in your sneakers pushing down. You have traction. You're not slipping and sliding. But now when you try to make a circle, you want to slide in one direction. So you lean on that like a crutch. And a good car built with a lot of side force, has a more sturdy crutch. You can really put a lot of weight on it. The driver can really tug on the wheel. And that's what we see in traffic. When that car comes up to the right side, that side force goes away. Guess what they do? They kick that crutch out, and the car goes spinning up the racetrack.
And we saw one of the crew members just take off sprinting because they knew that they needed something else with that 18 before he was able to go out on track.
And Steve, I think the advantage in side force is that it allows you to set the car up freer. It allows you to set the car up so it turns, because the car now turns, but it still has rear security. And that's the compromise in racing, is that you get a car to turn, but now it's too loose. So with side force, you can actually set the car up looser, and the back of the car is held by the air, and that allows the car to turn better and make more grip.
And Rick, this 46, so Mike Lynette is the teammate to Clint Boyer, but that's some personnel changes at Harry Scott Motorsports. Jay Guy was, as you heard, an ugly sound out of the 46. I don't know if he missed a downshift there, didn't get the RPMs right, but it definitely was a little miss in the tailpipe. But this 46 team has a new crew chief with Mike Hillman Jr. Jay Guy, the former crew chief, was promoted to technical director of Harry Scott Motorsports. He will work with Steve Addington, try to improve the performance on both cars. You see Chris Buescher in the green trying to move up into the top 24. This is our first car to go back on the racetrack, Jeff.
That's right. He's 25th. He's just below the cut line to try to transfer into round 2. So this car right here is critical for everybody on pit road. With 6 minutes left, he's going to push himself into the top. Where does he end up? He ends up 23rd. That moves Mears out, but that tells everybody on pit road you can run faster on the second time out. So that means Biffle, Kenseth, all these guys have to assume that they're going to have to go again. If not, they may get bumped.
Well, and then Eric Almirola's car right there in 24th. With Kyle Busch on the racetrack, I'd be getting my stuff ready. Right. Because I'm pretty confident that Eric Almirola will be moving below the bump line. You see on the left side of your screen, we've basically shifted the scoring up. The top 15 aren't shown. We all feel the top 15 has a pretty good chance of being in, but 16th to 24th. All of those drivers, while they're currently in, have to be concerned, because if drivers below the cut line can go out and run faster, then it's going to shift the line down. We have some big names there. We have Danica Patrick, Jeff Gordon, Matt Kenseth, all just above the cut line.
The advantage to Patrick and Gordon is that Buescher's directly behind him. He doesn't have time to go out and run again. So even if you can bump him out, he can't come counter you. He can't come back beat you again because there's not enough time. They can't cool it down in time and cool the tires down, I don't think, and still get a lap time in. So that's a little bit of an advantage to those guys, a car that cannot go back out and beat him.
We're comparing Kyle Busch's run to actual Carl Edwards, who's run the fastest lap He's only a 1/10 of a second off of that fastest lap, well in the top 24 right now.
Yeah, Carl Edwards has 7 or 8/10 of a second over 24. So Kyle Busch, barring a major mistake here off turn 3, will easily be in the top 24. And that's why you see on the left side of your screen those little green dots next to the names Mears, McDowell, Smith, Stenhouse, Bain. Those drivers know they need to go out and try to improve.
Chris Buescher now on the cut line because Eric Almirola has dropped down to 25th. Kyle Busch was 5th quickest on that run with just under 5 minutes to go in qualifying when he got out on the racetrack. Matt DiBenedetto back out on the track trying to break into the top 24. Steam coming out at the base of the windshield.
And that's what we talked about, Rick. Long laps here. So if the crew chiefs decide to keep the tape on the front of the car, which you need to do for speed, you can overheat and actually push a little water out. Ricky Stenhouse sparking as he goes through the tunnel corner, but gets through the tunnel corner really well. Look at him, 2.5, almost 3/10 better than Chris Buescher. Looking for a big improvement out of the 17 car.
The second lap for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. quite a bit better than his first run.
And this is really going to be a big difference because Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is currently 34th. If he jumps all the way up to the top 24, we're going to see, and he does, all the way to 14th. That's really going to start shaking up the lineup.
Puts Danica Patrick now on the cut line, and you see Casey Mears also 2/10 of a second to the good.
This is going to move Danica Patrick and put Jeff Gordon on the bubble, it looks like.
Yeah, and if I'm Jeff Gordon, I think I'm going to rerun because I see cars that perhaps can bump us out. Danica Patrick, you know, is going to rerun, and I don't think you can wait. She's probably going to be one of the last cars on the racetrack as we see the 15 of Clint Boyer now on the racetrack.
The cars that aren't in that have a chance to go faster, in my opinion. You got Almirola, that's a good team. You got Trevor Bain in the 6th car. You just saw his teammate be able to do it. So if you're Jeff Gordon, even if you're Matt Kenseth in 23rd, I have to assume that you got to assume that you're going to have to go again.
They just disconnected the cool down unit that was attached to the 88. So Jeff Gordon looks like he will be going back out onto the track here in just a few moments. As the time winds down, 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, and the concern is you look at Clint Boyer right here, 3/10 of a second off, while at Bristol or New Hampshire or even Charlotte, that's a ton of time. But here at Pocono, if he has a great turn 3, he could gain 3/10 of a second from here to the start-finish line.
Almirola in the green. So Almirola goes to the green and Jeff Gordon rolls. So Gordon is rolling off of pit road now as Almirola now went back to the red. So we'll see if Almirola can move Jeff Gordon. There he is, Eric Almirola.
And the other thing about this racetrack is that it's so big that it takes forever to get back to the start-finish line. So you have to leave pit road early. I mean, you can't wait long. You got to get moving. So decisions have to be made now.
Oh, Eric Almirola is not going to beat it with this lap. Major moment in turn 3. You saw him go down into the corner. The car gets really loose. And with only 1:30 left, that's it. Eric Almirola will not have a shot to improve. Although we see right here, Danica Patrick. I'm hoping that's Danica Patrick. All of those one paint schemes, right?
Repaint schemes the same.
I know, coming at you right there, but I assume that was Danica Patrick on the clock trying to improve her time.
It is Danica. Danica, Tony, and Kevin all have the similar paint schemes with Mobil 1 on board. Matt Kenseth also on the track and in the green now. So Matt Kenseth tracking in the green. Just 1 minute to go in this first round of qualifying from Pocono.
Jeff Gordon's left pit road. He just crossed the start-finish line, so Jeff Gordon is going to try to improve his time. He's currently 24th, but you're going to see a second Gordon below. That's trying to beat his own time.
Right. And
here comes Danica. Danica had a really good turn 3, had some momentum going, fell back off. Isn't going to work, but the thing is, Kenseth and Gordon, as it's going to turn out, really didn't need to run. Like Kenseth's going to move himself up the line, but it really didn't matter. I mean, it's because you're going to advance into Q2 irregardless. As it turned out, they didn't have to, but they didn't know that.
Right.
They didn't know that. Right now, Jeff Gordon's got to finish this run off, but this disadvantages them going into the next round without a doubt. I'm not sure I wouldn't be telling Jeff Gordon right now, hey, shut it down.
Well, I don't know if you can with Chris Buescher on the racetrack. Chris Buescher at 26 could eliminate Jeff Gordon.
Right.
Jeff Gordon has to go out and try to improve his lap time.
And it looks as though he's going to improve as he crosses the finish line.
Yeah, but is it going to? Well, it's going to definitely be enough for him.
Yeah, put him off the line. So now Biffle.
And Buescher's way above the line. I didn't think he could do it on the 3rd time out.
Chris Buescher's trying.
Turn 3 coming to get the checkered. So a guy in Greg Biffle who, he was safe. He had no idea they needed to run again. Chris Buescher's going to knock him out.
Chris Buescher goes all the way up to 18th quickest.
Nice job. 51-14. That bumped you right up to 18th.
You know, Greg Biffle was on the racetrack, and he had just come to pit road, so I'm not sure if the car didn't drive like he wanted, or perhaps they thought they were good, but somehow the 16 car didn't finish the lap that I think he needed to run.
So with Jeff Gordon ran a little quicker, that moved Biffle onto the bump. When Matt Kenseth ran a little quicker, that moved Biffle down. Even though it didn't change them in regard to being in Q2, it changed the people around them. I think Biffle and those guys got surprised. I didn't think they just didn't expect that Buescher, I didn't expect that Buescher could go out and run faster the third time out.
I'm going to tell you what Chris Buescher just did. Second round is going to be spectacular because these guys can now all go out and run faster every time out. Stress is going up.
They only have 10 minutes in round 2, and that's how many minutes it took for Kyle Busch to get through inspection and then get out onto the track just in time. Put up a pretty good lap, and he'll advance to round 2. Just getting bumped in the final seconds of round number 1. Greg Biffle will start 25th for Sunday's race as we go through the field, 25th through 40th. The drivers that did not advance into round 2. So their qualifying sessions are complete. Let's hear from Greg Biffle. He's standing by with Parker.
And Greg, we talked before qualifying after practice. You were really happy with your race car, but when you pulled out there, you pulled right back in and didn't give it one last chance. What happened there?
Yeah, Brian Patty told me to come in, and he said there wasn't anybody who's going to, or I didn't think there would, he didn't think there was anybody that beat us. And, you know, I laid down too conservative of a lap. We had a great car. I was banking on the third round. And, you know, it's been a while since we've had a car this fast, and now we don't even make the second round. So looks pretty foolish on our part. I didn't run a fast enough first lap, and it cooled off a huge amount. And so some of those guys were able to beat us on their third round. So it was just miscue on our part. We got a great car, so we'll be coming from 25th when the green drops.
And that's my next question is, if you have such a great car, are you able to use it to pass that many cars to get back up the front with all that speed, you think, in race trim?
Oh, yeah, this car will definitely drive to the front. I'm confident of that. It drives really good. This is what we need to race these guys with. So it'll definitely get to the top 10, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see it past that.
Greg Biffle looking for a top 10 on Sunday. Rick?
Thanks, Mark. And we will be re-racking the times. That means everybody has a clean shot at making it into round 3 when we come back. Get your NASCAR coverage when you're on the go with NASCAR Mobile, the official app of NASCAR. Puts race coverage and live in-car cameras right at your fingertips. You can even listen to drivers and teams discuss race strategy. Download for free at NASCAR.com/mobile. About 30 seconds before the start of round number 2.
So Rick, we heard Greg Biffle say Brian Patty called him off of that second run. Why did he do it? It seems like it should be so simple. But what a unique set of circumstances. Right there at the end, we had Matt Kenseth, who was already above the cut line, thinking he needed to run faster. Jeff Gordon doing the same. They both simultaneously outrun the 16, moving him down the line. At the same time, Chris Buescher from below the cut line goes out and goes faster than Greg Biffle. So while I agree, it was absolute a miscue. The 16 car had enough speed to be in the second round. You know, you don't want to misstep, but it's much easier to say up here in the booth watching the whole track versus down on pit road as these crew chiefs with just the timing and scoring screen.
And they were 11th fastest in practice, so they were thinking if they could just get into this queue, they had a chance to advance and be in that, you know, and to go for the pole. So they didn't want to run that extra time on the tires. They didn't want an extra lap. So that's why he called him in, because he thought he might have a shot at the pole. As it turned out, they didn't advance.
11 car of Denny Hamlin will make his way out onto the track. 4 wins at this racetrack. Denny Hamlin actually swept the races his rookie season. A lot of people thought, no way can a rookie come in here and have that much success, but Denny Hamlin did it.
It's interesting to me what Denny Hamlin's doing. He left pit road. He didn't leave fast. He left slow. He rolled off of 1 and 2, going slow, still going slow down the back straightaway, starting to build speed, but he did not want to run through 1 and 2 and heat his tires up, put any more laps on his tires than he absolutely had to. So he waited until the entrance of the tunnel turn to start building momentum to carry speed onto the front straightaway.
Quite a few are using that same strategy. The last car, I'm guessing, that is going to be able to do that is going through 1 and 2 now. But now with Denny Hamlin coming out of turn 3 at speed, cars can't be going that slow through 1 and 2.
And remember, every car on the left side of the screen then advanced, but now they're just currently in the order that they qualified the last session. That doesn't mean anything. As you see these cars put up a lap time, they're going to move to the top of the board. You see their little green light next to the number. That tells you they're on the racetrack right now. But 10 minutes, we're a minute and a half in. We don't have a car even taking a time yet. You know, this process at this very large racetrack takes a lot of time, so you have to be careful not to wait too long.
Steve, I actually just heard Dave Rogers, Carl Edwards' crew chief, come over the radio, and he was looking up at the sky, and he said, everyone is waiting because they have a lot of help coming. What help does he mean? He means this big, dark cloud that's about to come in front of the sun and shade this entire racetrack, and we know what that does for speed. So Carl Edwards' team, and a lot of teams out here looking at the sky right now for the cloud coming.
All crew chiefs turned into meteorologists really, really quickly in qualifying time. Any advantage you can get at this big of a racetrack can turn into huge time differences.
You have to be a meteorologist, because if you don't, Rick, your driver's going to blame you afterwards that you didn't see the cloud.
Oh, they're going to blame you anyway.
Oh.
But listen, Denny Hamlin,
big lap,
from his first session, picked up a half of a second.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a huge pickup.
And we heard Greg Biffle. He said that there was some miscommunication. Then he said, well, I didn't run fast enough. That tells me that he had some more in the bank. A little bit more, yep. And I think that's what we see. You know, to pick up a half second, Jeff, you have to leave something on the table in your first run.
Tony Stewart, he picked up a half a second as well.
Austin Dillon, Jamie McMurray, Chris Buescher. That's his 4th run, by the way. Chris Buescher had to work very hard to get even into the second round.
And what a good job by Chris Buescher and that team. A smaller team coming out and advancing. And they right there, on the 4th time on tires, they were only a 1/10 of a second off McMurray. So with a much bigger team, much more personnel, great job by Buescher and his team.
As we look around, Rick, it seems like there's a little sunshine at turn 1, but where Kurt Busch is right here on the second half of the racetrack, dark and cloudy, very cool down through the tunnel corner. Now he's going through the flat, long, sweeping turn 3.
And as a driver, you see that shade, you know you can push harder. You know you can drive a little deeper, get in the throttle just a little sooner. To make speed, you have to ask the car for it. You see that shade, and you ask a lot.
And Kurt Busch asks enough to get up to 3rd. Martin Truex Jr. also tracking in the green compared to Denny Hamlin, as is Kyle Larson and Joey Logano, all on the track right now. Martin Truex Jr. jumps up to the top of the chart. 50.441. Impressive lap. Kevin Harvick, 6th quickest. Kyle Larson still tracking in the green, just barely, now into the red.
Look how low the back of the car is. Look how far the left rear wheel is inside the wheel well. That car is on the ground. Side skirts get sealed up. Splitter sealed off to the ground.
Getting through 2, he lost quite a bit of speed. Now he's a 1/10 of a second off what Martin Truex Jr. had run. And so Kyle Larson will be 2/10 of a second off, and he will end up 4th quickest in this run. Jimmy Johnson very slow on the track.
Yeah, he must have had an issue. He came out, he took the green, but then he abandoned the run. With only 5 minutes left, he's going to have to hustle it in, get it cooled down, and try to make it run. Let's see what happened. Down into the heavily banked turn 1, you see the race car. Big wiggle with the back of the race car. That's a major moment, and Jimmy Johnson says, you know, I know this isn't going to be good enough. I might as well abort and try to save some time to make another run.
Kyle Busch on track. He goes 7th quickest in his run. Everyone trying to get into the top 12.
Still a lot of cars to run, Rick. You know, that's only half of the field, just over half of them. There's 13 cars that have run.
And we just passed the halfway point of time.
Casey Kane not the run they were looking for. Slowest of the cars that have gone. Here comes Menard, the car that was fastest in practice. We wondered if he could back it up. Looking good right now.
Lost a little bit of speed there through the turn. Trying to hang on.
Right on the bottom in turn 3, entered low, got it right on the bottom. It's a good lap.
Lost a little bit of speed exiting 3, it looked like. But still, third quickest for Paul Menard.
And that should easily put that 27 car into the third round.
Remember the mission. It's all about advancing. You don't have to be first right now. You just have to be in that top 12.
Chase Elliott on track, and he's in the red now. Carl Edwards comes on track and tracking in the green. Again, this is all compared to Martin Truex Jr. now, who's run the fastest lap.
And there's some big names. We have Kevin Harvick in 11th, Austin Dillon in 10th, Kyle Busch in 9th, and I'm not sure we're going to stay there as we see Chase Elliott jump to 4th. That puts Kevin Harvick on the cut line, and looking at Carl Edwards' lap, I think that's instantly going to be bumped as well. You know, sometimes I get all tongue-tied, Rick. That's when you're supposed to help me.
I'm here to help you. Most of the time you can just stop. And as Ryan Blaney crossed the start-finish line, he was 13th, so just outside of that cut line, but he was faster than Kevin Harvick. Austin Dillon is now on the cut line.
We still have a lot of good cars to go. We have cars that have waited, decided they're going to wait, let this track get as cool as it possibly can get with the cloud cover. They know that they're probably only going to get one run anyway, so wait as long as you can. And these are cars that probably don't feel like they had a chance to sit on the pole. Their goal is to improve their qualifying position the best they can, because the disadvantage in waiting is that your tires are going to be hotter when you go into Q3. So that's a disadvantage, but if you can wait and let these clouds cool the racetrack down, it'll give you the best chance to move into Q3.
That cloud cover covering most of the track now, as Casey Mears is on the clock, or coming to the clock now, coming to the green.
I love this qualifying format. It puts strategy in play as opposed to just having a draw when you go out and qualify. You can decide when you want to go. You have strategy. Speed matters. I really enjoy watching this. It's fun. It's competitive. So much better than the old format.
Casey Mears green on entry always concerns me that it's going to go the wrong way on exit.
And if it goes the wrong way on exit here, Steve, it's long straightaways, and it goes wrong bad.
So superstition, Jeff. I want to, as we're looking at this, green is good on the scoring chart, but why is green not good on a race car?
I don't know. That Buddy Parrott told me that years ago. I don't know if it's true or not, but he told me, so I went with it.
And right now, green looking good for Casey Mears. All four drivers are ahead of what Austin Dillon has put up as far as a number, as we're under 2 minutes to go in this second round.
And if you're the Busch brothers in 10th and 11th, all these green lap times have got to be making you nervous.
Yeah. And Mears just slows down as he comes to the finish line. Wasn't able to break into the top 12. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. does. That means Kurt Busch and Kyle Busch now just above the cut line. Kenseth in the green by 0.2 of a second. Allmendinger as well. 1/10 of a second for A.J. Allmendinger.
Matt Kenseth the 4th.
Big lap.
Yeah, big lap. He was 24th fastest in practice, so huge improvement for that team.
And you couldn't think of a team that needs a good run more than this 47. A streak of Brad Luck. They've shown some frustration. A.J. Allmendinger up to 11th.
How much time, though, does it take to get around? Because right now I'm seeing the 18 of Kyle Busch still sitting on pit road, and he might not have enough time to get all the way back around to get back out on the track to get into the top 12.
He should leave here in about 6 seconds, 52, 53 seconds. He could probably make it around as you see Jeff Gordon fighting that steering wheel in the race car.
But I like this strategy of Jeff Gordon and his team, waiting as long as they could, let this racetrack cool off. I don't think I'm not sure anybody else is going to get out in time. Yeah. But Jeff Gordon with a good lap.
No, Kyle Busch is definitely not going to make it with 41 seconds left. He's going to be a non-issue in this, but the 88, he's going to be an issue in the green currently. Lost some time across the tunnel.
Yeah, got tight off the tunnel. Used a lot of racetrack. Can he make it up? Can he make 2.5 tenths up in turn 3? He's putting effort into it. A lot of wheel movement. Going the wrong way. Not going to do it.
Austin Dillon, Kevin Harvick, Jimmy Johnson, all in the green. Will they be far enough in the green that they will be able to advance? Jamie McMurray also in the green. 7 seconds, 6 seconds, 5 seconds remaining.
So you have to start your lap by now. So everyone that's on a lap, these laps are going to count. So right here, this lap of Dillon's going to count.
Austin Dillon goes 9th quickest. That puts A.J. Allmendinger now on the cut line.
Harvick and Johnson not fast enough. They're going to be 16th and 21st respectively.
Stenhouse Jr. gets knocked out. Austin Dillon looks like he will be the only one that will improve his time on that last run and be able to get into the top 12.
And Kurt Busch tried to start a lap, but he didn't have enough time, although Ryan Newman is still trying to finish his lap.
And Newman does get into the top 12. That moves Allmendinger out of the top 12.
50-60. Good job, bud.
Newman in the green and 7th quickest in round 2. So the top 12 are now advancing to round number 3. Martin Truex Jr. was fastest in round 2. And incredible memories for Martin Truex Jr. at this racetrack. He was able to win and get into the chase a year ago. A very emotional win for he and Sherry. The celebration in Victory Lane will be remembered forever. How will he do in round 3? That's coming up next. Round 2 is complete. That means that 13 through 24 now set these positions. A surprising list of names here. Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Jeff Gordon, Casey Kane, Jimmy Johnson, all not advancing into the 3rd round. Let's go to Mike.
And Kyle Busch now walking back to his transporter, had one of the faster cars in practice, but inspection took much longer than you expected. How much speed do you feel like you needed to sacrifice to get the car back in compliance?
We just got LIS today, so the guys will press Control-Alt-Delete on that tonight, I'm sure, and then we'll put everything back to the way it was before going through for qualifying, and we'll be fine tomorrow, and we'll have speed for the race.
How do you feel like the car will be in race trim as you attack the race on Sunday?
Find out tomorrow, right?
We will find out. Kyle heading back to the transporter right now.
And round 3, we will determine the top 12 starting positions as well as the pole. Can Paul Menard finish a good day up front? From Pocono, presented by Mobile One, is on NBCSN. Race coverage beginning Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. A year ago, it was Matt Kenseth who won the race. Jeff Gordon, most wins ever at Pocono Raceway, and we'll see how much success he has in the 88 on Sunday. Mike.
And Rick, catching up with the crew chief of the 18 car, Adam Stevens, try to get a better understanding of what happened in inspection. What's your interpretation?
Well, we just couldn't get across the LIS, so we weren't in tolerance of the rear axle toe. The LIS was broken in opening inspection this morning, so nobody got a baseline reading to see where we all were. So expected a few cars to have to roll around, and we were one of them, and just barely missed it the first time, and we made an adjustment, and it wasn't showing the adjustment on one of the sides. Like, it just wouldn't move. So we kept moving it, and it didn't move, and finally all of the adjustments showed up the last time through, and I promise you we were the most legal car on the racetrack when actual qualifying came around.
It's hard to doubt that, Rick. This team worked awfully hard to get that car through inspection.
Yeah, and it was difficult because Kyle Busch had a great amount of speed in practice. In the first practice this morning, was 3rd quickest of all the cars that had taken time, and so then to not be able to advance into this final round, I'm sure it was very disappointing. But as the time ran out on them, as far as getting out onto the racetrack, they were not able to make that second run in the 2nd round to have a shot at the pole or being in round number 3. The car's firing up, and the green flag is now displayed. 5 minutes for the final round to determine the top 12 starting positions and who will win the pole.
Rick, there's no reason to wait here. If you feel your car's ready to go, you can go ahead and make a run. If you don't feel there's an advantage for a cloud or anything else in the area, because with 5 minutes, no cars will be able to make more than one time lap.
Again, you see them rolling out slow. Nobody's in a hurry. Everybody's trying to save a little bit of tire through turn 1. Nobody wants to put heat in the tire. Now, they're also trying to spread themselves out a little bit. You don't want to be right with the car. You want to give yourself a little bit of a gap so they don't aerodynamically mess you up as you go through the corners.
Sun is coming out, though, once again onto the racetrack.
Go fast then. Go fast. Get as much shade as you can.
On the front stretch, and then you see as Denny's about to get into the tunnel turn.
It's one shot at it here. You only get one shot. There's not enough time to come back in and cool it down. So this is all of it right here. What you see is your time. You will not have a chance to go back out.
3 Joe Gibbs Racing cars in the top 12. Bert Giroux has 1, as well as RCR with 3. Hendrick 1, Stewart Haas Racing 1, Chip Ganassi Racing 1, and Penske 2.
3 cars for RCR. That's an impressive day for Richard Childress Racing so far, focusing on qualifying and practice. Seems to be paying off so far.
Denny Hamlin will be the first one to set the mark as far as what everyone will be shooting for the pole. Saw a lot of sparks coming out from underneath the 11. That can't help. That's scrubbing speed off as metal hits the asphalt.
You want these cars as low to the racetrack as you can get them. So when you get them that low, they're going to spark a little bit. There's just no way around it. Denny Hamlin pushing as hard as you can. You have to learn the grip of your car. As the tires cool down, you go back out again. The limit of how hard you can push this car changes. So you have to find that limit and get right to it.
Denny Hamlin, Chesterfield, Virginia's Denny Hamlin goes 50.409. Chase Elliott not as quick. Carl Edwards looks like he might be a little bit faster. Brad Keselowski is second quickest.
And that 40, that's the fastest anyone's gone today.
Carl Edwards, Tony Stewart second quickest, not able to capitalize. Paul Menard goes to the top of the chart.
Nothing out the back right now.
50.372. New crew chief Danny Stockman on board with Paul Menard, and we've sang his praises already as Carl Edwards now betters Paul Menard.
That's not going to last very long, though. The 78 of Martin Truex has a different idea. He's going to run a 50.21, a full 10th of a second clear.
Hell yeah, 21.
You hear the excitement of Cole. I think that's Cole Pern on the radio cheering his driver on. And we've had 9 cars take lap time already.
Kenseth, Austin Dillon, Joey Logano still to go. Still to take time as they're under 2 minutes to go in this final round. Matt Kenseth just about to come up to speed now. Logano getting ready to come to the green.
With a minute 45, Rick, all 3 of these cars will have no problem coming to the green on time.
An advantage you think could go a little bit later, even though now the entire track is under the sun?
I haven't seen much of an advantage in this session. It seems like it's been pretty consistent for all 5 minutes.
Logano takes the green. So right now he went through turn 3 as hard as he could, learn what his car would do, what it wouldn't do. He's going to try to apply that into turn 1. It's in the corner as compared to Truex really well on corner middle. Lost a little bit on exit, but it's right there. It's going to be close.
Hovering right around the exact same time as what Martin Truex Jr. has run. Now a little bit slower as he enters the tunnel turn.
A lot of time can be made up in such a short corner. It's such a fast, quick corner. You go through it, you see Joe Logano 2.5, 3/10 going the wrong way.
The other 2 guys, though, Matt Kenseth and Austin Dillon, were in the green and then both shifted back to the red.
We'll see what Matt Kenseth does. If he also loses time through the tunnel, maybe the 78 just got through the tunnel corner exceptionally well, and it seems that way as now both the 22 and the 20 have lost time through that corner versus our pole sitter currently, Martin Truex Jr.
Kenseth and Dillon as the final seconds wind down from this final round. No one else on the track trying to make another run. Everybody knowing one and done. And Martin Truex Jr. looks to be safe as Austin Dillon will be 0.6 of a second off of what Truex Jr. was able to run. 10th career pole for the 78, Martin Truex Jr.
Jeff Curtis, head engineer on the team.
It was a good track for this team. A big win a year ago, and now their first pole.
Which track isn't good for this team?
They have been very, very good.
And just, you know, just consistently fast. Every different style of racetrack we go to, the 78 seems to have it figured out to have speed.
So Martin Truex Jr. once again will be celebrating, if only for a brief moment, here on a Friday in Pocono. He and Cole Pern will go back and analyze the speed that they found here and try to figure out how they can equate that into speed for 400 miles on Sunday.
And you see the smiles. Man, it feels good when you have speed and consistently have speed. It's just, you know, we talk about motivation, and we heard Danny Stockman say that RCR was trying to get their program better. You see what it does. You heard how they, you know, the guys are just beat down when you're not fast. Well, this entire 78 car, they're excited. They all have smiles on their face because this isn't the first time they've shown speed this year.
And it looks as though Parker's caught up with Martin Truex Jr.
Martin Truex, your third pole of the season, but this team has consistently showed speed week in, week out. Just talk about getting that pole here.
It's exciting. You know, we had a bad race here the first time around, and we didn't get much practice and qualified bad, and that led to us getting in trouble on pit road at the first stop of the race. So to have a good starting spot, you know, obviously the first pit box, I'm sure we'll pick that one. That's a huge advantage. So looking forward to Sunday. Car's been really good so far today, and just can't thank everyone enough back at Furniture Racing in Colorado, everybody at Toyota that makes this deal work, and you know, JGR, TRD engines, I mean, just everybody that helps us with this program. These cars are phenomenal, and they're fun to drive right now.
A big win here a year ago. Does this car remind you of that car that got you victory lane a year ago?
Oh, it's better. It's a lot better. This car we had at Charlotte, so I don't know, something about it just feels right to me.
And that's the car that absolutely dominated the Charlotte race here for Martin Truex, her pole winner.
Yeah, they only didn't lead 4 laps at Charlotte in a 600-mile race. You see Cole Pern there. All smiles for Cole, from engineer to crew chief, and they've found speed at Pocono.
Yeah, they have found speed. They have speed everywhere. And, you know, we saw the problems that Kyle Busch had with inspection. Well, this is something you see all the teams doing. What they're doing is they're swerving all they can so that when they roll across that laser platform, they've built as much insurance into their car as they possibly can. The laser, it measures in thousandths of an inch. So we see after races, after qualifying, all these times, we see teams doing this, just trying to set the rear toe, trying to get things so that they can go back through the laser.
Well, you remember, when you go around Pocono, you only turn left. So 3 very fast, heavy loaded corners drives the housing to the left. As you turn left, the housing wants to move that way in the car. So when you're done your qualifying lap, you swerve both directions, especially back to the right. You want to turn back to the right as hard as you can and try to reset everything. You know, not that anything wants to move, but with the loads put on the suspension, you can see parts move and flex, and they want to take every opportunity they can to have the best chance of passing the inspection platform.
Let's take a look at the starting grid. The front row made up of Martin Truex Jr. and Carl Edwards, 2 Toyotas up front. Paul Menard, his best start since Talladega of 2014. So maybe Danny Stockman coming over to that 27 team has helped that program out.
And how about Tony Stewart again with another good qualifying run?
Yeah, and you see right here in row 6, Austin Dillon with the 3rd RCR car to make the final round inside the top 12. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. didn't look great in practice, found speed, continually moved forward through qualifying.
Busch brothers back there in row 8. Kevin Harvick, Ryan Blaney making up row 9. Look a little bit further back. Jimmy Johnson back in row 11. Jeff Gordon back in row 12. Hendrick Motorsports there represented in those 2 rows.
We heard from Greg Biffle, a little miscommunication, didn't get to make that final run of round 3, ends up on the inside of the 13th row.
Get back to the final rows here. Looking for an impressive 40-car field as we get ready for Sunday's race. And Paul Menard, we've talked about a great qualifying run for him. He's with Mike.
Yeah, Ricky didn't end up on the pole, but this is his best starting position in 82 races. Seems like instant chemistry with your new crew chief, Danny Stockman. How would you summarize the way this all played out for you today?
Yeah, I mean, the car's been good since we unloaded. You know, Danny spent a lot of time in the shop this week trying to, you know, he's never been on a Cup team before, so he's working with the guys, try to get everything sorted out with the car for this weekend. And you know, this is a new style car that RCR debuted last week at Indy, and Justin and everybody at RCR worked out a lot of bugs with it, and I think we got it tuned up right now.
Paul Menard will roll off 3rd on Sunday afternoon, Rick.
And Paul Menard in 3rd, and then Newman in 5th, Dillon in 12th. So we have 3 RCR cars in the top 12. As Danny Stockman said, they didn't suck. They had a good day.
He put it so eloquently earlier, and already the pictures, the selfies for Martin Truex Jr. Good feelings again for that team.
Yeah, but something Paul Menard said right there kind of struck me. You know, it's a new style car. We talk about improving. It's not just shocks and springs. Sometimes it's an entire package. Sometimes it can't be found at the racetrack. You need to go back to your shop, Rick, figure out whether it's aerodynamically, whether it's horsepower, whether it's chassis. It sounds like Richard Childress Racing has put a list together, made a different style car, a new update, and seems to be improving on their speed.
Finding speed is exactly what every team wants to do, just like Team Penske, Joey Logano. But it was Martin Truex Jr. who won the pole, so we look forward to Sunday afternoon's race from Pocono.